Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Polo, and I'm an entrepreneur. I decided today to not focus on my story. For my sins, I have a very strong presence on the internet. So if you want to know anything about me, from when I started probably my career until now, it's all there for you to read up on. So I'm not going to bore you with that detail. My colleagues have spoken at great length about what being an entrepreneur is about, you know, the lessons that they have learned, and I agree with everything they've said. So I'm not going to go into that. I can't say anything more than that. I am a great believer. Those who have come to know me, I'm said to be the quieter of the dragons. I am. So somebody asked me during the break, why is it that I was so quiet? And I said, well, I tend to like to speak when I've got something to say. So, but those who have come to know me over the years have come to appreciate that the one thing that I tend to be very focused on is what problems are we trying to solve. That's typically what I spend a lot of my time trying to think about. So when we started our business in 2008 in South Africa, at the time, we were trying to address the problem of lack of access to capital by black entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs in particular. You will know that in South Africa we've got a policy that seeks to redress the inequalities of the past called Black Economic Empowerment. So on the back of that, we were trying to see how we bring institutional investors closer to the market that was so desperate for capital so that we could start growing our economy. And what we decided very early on to focus on was women in particular, because as has been said already, women do make up the majority in terms of absolute numbers of entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, in sub-Saharan Africa, they say the number is 40%, but in South Africa at the time, actually women made up the most number. And when we then looked at, so what was the uptake of financial products by these women, we found that actually women benefited the least when it came to financial instruments as well as any kind of business support. So we thought, okay, well, let's go out and find solutions to bridge this gap. So the current storyline in 2015-16 is that it is said that our economic growth as a subcontinent is slowing due to what's happening in the mining sector across, what's happening to the commodity prices and what's happening to the mining sector across the continent, where we're losing a lot of jobs, and there are a whole lot of other structural challenges, as you will know as well. And the Financial Times has also said, well, we talk about Africa rising, so this slowdown, does it not actually, make it necessary for us to rethink this whole notion of Africa rising? Is it a reality? Is it going to happen? And this is typically the narrative you hear about Africa throughout centuries. Whenever a story is told about Africa and the possibilities of Africa, there's always somebody out there who's saying, nah, it's never going to happen. And for me, this is just one of those narratives that we've become so accustomed to as Africans. In 2008, when we started this business that I referred to, we said, okay, we are educated, we can speak private English, we know how to run the numbers, we know how to do financial models, we know how to interpret all sorts of statistics, and we as Africans, as women, we come from these communities, so we also know what the challenges of the communities we come from are. So the problem is how, who's going to be the middleman in order to make sure that the two extremes meet somewhere halfway. When we went to investors, they said, oh, guys, you look beautiful. Because one of the things that I've always said is, and it talks to what Gil said earlier, that I used to say to my colleagues, if you're going to go and ask for money, please look like you have it yourself. So I would always dress to the nines and go and talk private English to big institutions and say, give us your money. We will invest it responsibly. And when they said, okay, well, so far so good, you look good, you smell good, you speak good. And then they say, so where are you going to deploy this money? And we said, well, you know, there's a whole plethora of black entrepreneurs in this country. There's a whole plethora of women entrepreneurs who are underserved. We speak their language. We come from where they come from. So we speak both your language and their language. We look like them. So they will open their doors to us. They said, no, that's not true. They don't exist, those people that you're talking about. They look like this. They're micro. They sell tomatoes on the streets. They, you know, they're dressmakers. They make 1 or 2 dresses a week. So, you know, they don't have collateral, they don't have track record, they don't know how to interpret financial statements, they don't know how to write business plans. We just, you know, it just doesn't exist, and if it does, it's very nascent and it's not lucrative. So we don't think you can do it. But we were passionate, and we somehow convinced 1 or 2 fools to part with their money. And look what we found. What we found, I've used your first lady on purpose because I know she's an entrepreneur, like many of us here. But she's that's me, believe it or not. And we said, our officer smelled good, I spoke good, and I representative of quite a and with that fool's money that we managed to convince them to give us, we then had more women. We went to, before I talk about the story, to, it was 70 something, more than 90 businesses that 72.5. There is no I'm aware of today that can boast but nobody believed they existed, that they existed. Nobody believed commercially that you can. All the naysayers in 2008 who were wary of giving us money are knocking at our doors today. We have then used this story, which was a test case. I always say South Africa because it's small, and I think it will be the case here as well in Namibia. If you start a business in Namibia, please don't think about it as being a Namibian business. Look at it as you know, at Namibia as being your test case with the intention of you know, rolling this out and scaling it out into the rest of the continent. And that's what we did when we started our business. We thought, let's do this in South Africa. Let's test our thesis, let's refine it, and let's get to a model that we are very confident we can actually roll out in the rest of the continent. And because of that track record that we were able to build, and because we were convincing, and because we also did our homework and we did our research, last year when we went back to market and we said, look at what we managed to do. Do you believe us now? They said, yes, we believe you now, we will give you more money. So they gave us more money for South Africa. But we used the same money, the same track record, and we said, well, it's now time for the rest of the continent. Because we have proven, if we can prove that you can actually build a portfolio of more than 70% women, you know, in your whole investment portfolio, it is possible for you to do it across the subcontinent as well. And we use the same track record to then start talking to international investors to then follow us into our Sub-Saharan Africa Fund. So today I'm talking about the future because that's what I do. I've solved the problem in South Africa. I have moved on. South Africa is taking care of itself. We have built a very strong team of capable people. We were not shy to hire the best of brains. We've got all sorts of skilled people in our organization. We pay them market rates, because we learned very early on the hard lesson of you get what you pay for. If you go for cheap resources, you will get cheap skills, meaning that you will have cheap product. So we've taken care of business in South Africa. We've solved the problem. We are continuing to solve the problem. It has not gone away, but we've figured out how to solve the problem. And we are using that same model, and we are going into the rest of the continent. Now, when you get into the rest of the continent, women are said to make up about 40% of entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, depending on who you talk to, others say that we are in the majority. But 40% is a significant number. And we got the same response, where people said, no, Africa is nascent. It's not as sophisticated as South Africa. You're not going to get the pipeline. You're not going to get the quality of pipeline. You're going to lose your money. We then went out, and we said, okay, let's test that theory. You go to a place like Rwanda, and you find a sophisticated operation where they make leather bags, and they're able to export them. Now, that is not a woman sitting on the side of the road selling tomatoes. That is an industrialist, as we like calling them in South Africa. Back home, we have a woman who has identified an opportunity, a problem actually, in the market, where a lot of African ladies will share with you the challenge of finding hair care products that actually work for our hair. Despite the fact that apparently the African hair industry is about a $6 billion industry, we still don't have products that actually work properly for our hair. That's why we have weaves and we do all sorts of things to our hair, just so that we can manage it. And there's a lady who found that opportunity, $6 billion market. Nobody has taken the time to figure out what kind of product works for natural African hair. And this lady is doing that. That is not a lady who's selling tomatoes in the street corner somewhere. We went to Zambia, a good friend of mine, Monica Musonda, who I'm sure the young lady will know because you are both young global leaders. Highly qualified commercial lawyer, worked in the UK, has worked for Dangote, very well sought after. She decided to, give up her legal degree and go and start an agro-processing business focusing on making baby food in Zambia. And these are the women that we are saying Africa has. These are the women of the future, these are the entrepreneurs of the future, and guess what? They're still underserved. Did you know that the biggest driver of growth is actually private capital and not developmental assistance? The world has been seized for centuries with sending us grant after grant, aid, food parcels, all sorts of things, with the hope that the dark continent will finally come out of its abyss. And yet, the reality is that if you provide appropriate type of capital to the appropriate type of business, you will start seeing development taking place on this great continent of ours. The market opportunity. 1 billion population today, thereabout. Gil, you said how much? 2.5 billion in... Exactly, 4 billion by 2100. That is the opportunity. We are by far one of the most vibrant new markets across the globe. We have the fastest growing cities, some of the biggest numbers of fastest growing cities across the world. God gave us natural resources. We've got the largest arable land available throughout the world. What is the biggest challenge that the world is facing today? Lack of food or food shortages. Africa is the answer to the food crisis that the world is facing. Where are women? In agriculture. A lot of them are in primary agriculture. What is the next logical step for women to move into within that whole value chain? It's agro-processing. So the answer to the world's problem, the world food problem, lies with us. And a significant part of us is made up of women who today financial institutions are still overlooking. So we have one of the most robust telecoms, penetrations in the world. Actually, we are the second largest in terms of number of telecoms penetration in the world. So we've got a lot going for us. We just need to believe in ourselves. So there's a lot going for this continent. There are a lot of what I call, I suppose, potential unlockers of opportunity, because we are the ones who have to unlock all of this. So all of this will remain nice on paper if we do not do anything about it. So the reason I said today I'm talking to you about the future is because I have put my hand up and I said I'm going to do the work that is necessary to unlock all of this, so that the statements I shared with you right at the beginning from the Financial Times, from the IMF, are proven to be false, as we have proven them to be false in the past. We will use impact investing. We have already actually started a fund. That's why you will even see the name. I'm sure those who know me are wondering, what is Alethea Identity? We've started a company registered in Mauritius called Alethea Identity, which is a joint venture between two African women. One of my business partners is based in Lagos. Her company is Alethea, my company is Identity. We've created a joint venture and we said we're going to solve this problem together. African sisters doing it for the continent. We said we can speak the language, the private English. We can go to London and New York and all these other places and find providers of capital. We have relationships with our governments. Many of us as citizens would have relationships with our governments and any other intermediaries we can work with. We will go and talk to those people. And we've already started doing that, and we are seeing significant things starting to happen. We will find the enterprises. I've already shared with you some of the entrepreneurs that we have seen, we have looked at, and some of whom we are already talking to. And I'm hoping that my colleague who spoke earlier, whose name has just escaped me now, the young lady, will be one of the women I have on my slides at the next Inspiration Project. We will find those enterprises, we will create the employment, and we will have the impact that we need in order for us to avoid what the IMF has said about us. We talked about Africa Rising, and we are now starting to promote Girls Rising. It's time. We will find those women who have already demonstrated, and those businesses, and through the way that we invest. And this is what we've done very well in South Africa, where we not only put money into businesses, but we also become growth partners with those businesses. We support them. We help with improving corporate governance. We help with market development. We're very keen in starting to have conversations around expanding beyond the geographies that we are very comfortable with. You know, when you're in Namibia, and you probably are very comfortable doing business in Namibia and you don't want to go anywhere else. We're talking to people who are saying, Namibia was my test case, Africa is my oyster. Those are the people that we're talking to. And this is really just a statistic to prove or to confirm some of the information that I've given you here. You will see that levels of entrepreneurship amongst women are actually very high. It is said that 41% of Nigerian women are entrepreneurs. That is the highest statistic I've ever seen of entrepreneurship anywhere in the world. Typically, they say that levels of entrepreneurship in any population are around 4%. And that's the norm. Everybody's comfortable with that. In Nigeria, they say it's 41%. Botswana has got one of the highest levels of entrepreneurship around women. And these are the countries that we are targeting. We're looking for those women who are enterprising and who want to help us to achieve this, this objective and this vision that we have set for ourselves. So in conclusion, Dr. Kaberuka, who used to be the president of the African Development Bank until last year, they have what they call annual meetings every May. And he asked the question, he said, who is Africa rising for? In all the time that there has been a scramble for Africa, there has been this for Africa, there's been that for Africa, who has benefited then? And the question that we are faced with as today's generation, as the ones who have got the capacity and the potential to take us to the next level, is who should it rise for this time around? Is it going to rise for Europe and other continents again, or is it going to rise for us? And I say that it will rise for us this time around. Thank you very much.